most of us here take energy for granted. We used energy to drive or fly to this event. We plugged our phones into an outlet last night and woke up this morning with a full charge. We eat food and wear clothes that were produced all around the world and shipped thousands of miles for our use. I heard recently that Americans think about energy for just 6 minutes a year. I've been thinking about energy for a long time. A decade ago, I dropped out of Yale and founded the Energy Action Coalition, grew it into the largest youth clean energy organization in the world. But it wasn't until I fell in love that I actually started to understand how our energy system works. Wahala, my wife, is from the northern edge of the Navajo Reservation in an area called Black Mesa. It's hard not to think about energy there because the ground is so often shaking under your feet from the constant blasting at the coal mine that sprawls across the plateau. Black Mesa is home to what was, at one point, the largest coal strip mine in North America. Peabody Coal Company, for over 40 years, has been mining coal out of the ground to electrify the neon lights in Las Vegas, the air conditioning units in Phoenix, and the homes in Los Angeles. The Navajo Nation has no ownership stake in this mine. There's over 50% unemployment on Black Mesa. Excessive water use by the mine has permanently damaged the only source of drinking water in the area. And these families live beneath massive power lines, but most of them don't have running water or electricity. I'm building a home with Wahala up on Black Mesa on land that has been in her family for generations, just over the hill from the mine. Here's a picture she took last summer of our 2 daughters playing in the forest. You can see on the horizon smoke and coal dust from TNT exploding the earth at the mine. In the story of Black Mesa is the story of our energy system. Giant energy companies destroying communities, making record profits, and destabilizing our climate. And all of us are passive consumers of the energy they produce, thinking about it for just 6 minutes a year. In 2011, 2 professors, Mark Jacobson of Stanford and Mark DeLucci of UC Davis, asked the question, what would it take to power the world with the wind, water, and the sun? And like others who have conducted similar analyses, they came to the conclusion that there are, quote, no economic or technological barriers to converting the entire world to clean, renewable energy sources. This is a monumental task, greater in ambition than constructing the interstate highway system or landing a man on the moon. We're going to have to build 3.8 million wind turbines and 90,000 solar plants. Our roofs are going to have to shine because we'll need 1.7 billion rooftop solar arrays. In Jacobson and DeLucci's model, we're getting 50% of our energy from wind, 34% from large solar plants, 6% from rooftop solar arrays, and the remaining 10% from tidal, geothermal, hydro, and wave power. Globally, the investment required to build out this clean energy capacity is $100 trillion. Woo! And that doesn't even include the additional trillions we need to spend to build out our electric car infrastructure and build out our public transit systems and rebuild our grid. Simply put, building a new clean energy infrastructure is the biggest business opportunity on the planet. But we're not there yet. Right now, we get 33% of our energy from oil, 28% from coal, 22% from natural gas, and 6% from nuclear. We only get 11% of our energy from renewables. And most of the profits of our energy system flow to a few immense companies. Last year, as gas prices were higher than in any previous year, ExxonMobil was making $122 million in profits per day. I don't even know how to think about a number that big. You could buy a lot of Baja tacos for $122 million a day. The fossil fuel industry has every incentive to block the transition to clean energy, and they've spent hundreds of millions of dollars doing just that. The $52 million that Exxon spent in the first 3 years of the Obama administration lobbying them is just half a day's profit. And Exxon isn't even close to the largest energy company in the world. The 13 largest energy companies are all owned by national governments. So if you think we have a problem here with the separation of oil and state, imagine what it's like fighting big fossil fuels in Russia, home to Gazprom, the world's largest producer of natural gas. But we are at a new turning point. When I grew up, the cost of solar was over $40 a watt. It's now just 75 cents. Wind prices have similarly fallen during that time. And as we've burned up the most readily available fossil fuel reserves, the price of coal has steadily continued to rise. The cost of oil has gone on a dramatic increase over the last couple of years. Prices are different in different countries, but the overall trend is clear. Our energy world is turning upside down. Something explosive happens when those lines cross. We go from a world where coal and carbon are seen as necessary evils to a world where they're just plain evil. When those lines cross, the invisible hand of the market comes into play. It is beginning to make more financial sense all around the world to power our lives with wind, water, and the sun rather than dirty energy. And here's the thing. These energy resources are distributed, not centralized. So if you, unlike a big coal plant, solar arrays and wind turbines lend themselves to a more democratic form of ownership. So we find ourselves between two energy paradigms. If all we have are big banks, all we're going to get is big energy. Our banking system and our fossil fuel energy system grew up together, and they run in tandem. A bank will cut a sweet deal for a developer to build a $500 million coal plant, but go to that bank for a $100,000 loan to build a rooftop solar array, and you're probably going to be out of luck. If we want to see community-owned clean energy, we're going to need a new kind of financial system. We're going to need to see a system that looks more like an ecosystem. This is not pie in the sky. It's fast happening in one of the strongest economies in the world. Germany gets about as much sunlight as Alaska. But last summer, one afternoon, the Germans set a world record by getting more than half of their energy from the sun. And you know who owns those clean energy resources? Everyday people. Only 6.5% of the energy is owned by large utilities. My company, Mosaic, is an online platform for clean energy investment, enabling people to directly invest in clean energy projects and earn a good rate of return. The minimum investment, just $25. A few weeks ago, we listed our first few solar investment projects, which had a 4.5% expected annual rate of return. And in 24 hours, they were all sold out. 435 people invested over $315,000 to fully fund 4 solar projects here in California. Our vision is clean energy abundance for and by the people. If we're going to build this new clean energy infrastructure, we're going to need to develop more new technologies and innovative financing platforms and pass smart policies. But the critical X factor is you. Will you leave here today still just a passive energy consumer? Will our engineering students spend their days designing better oil rigs or designing the 8,000 parts in a wind turbine? Will we sit at home watching TV, or will we join our neighbors in putting solar panels up on our rooftops, on our churches, on our schools? Will we continue to invest our money and let our institutions invest their money in fossil fuels? Or will we instead invest in the switch to clean energy? Ahead of us is the biggest business, social, and environmental opportunity of our time. And the question remains, will we seize it? In this generation, we can shift from fossil fuels to clean energy, and we can do it in a way that makes all of us richer, healthier, and happier. But the only way it will happen is if we get involved and take power back into our own hands. Thank you.